Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Saturdays Rewritten here on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform. Happy 2026, everyone. This is how you build brand awareness on YouTube. You start out strong, you put up 47 total videos between full-length videos and shorts, and then you stop posting for months and vanish. That's how you do it, guys. And that's the strategy I took in to 2026. No, kidding. I'm just, settling into young married life. And then the holiday season came along and things just got busy. So that is the explanation for my absence. But I want to get back into it as we head into 2026. And the college football playoffs have been, in my mind, fantastic. So I wanted to get on here and talk about it with you guys and just go through some of these results and just really re-engage and look at forward to what the playoffs have before us. So without further ado, let's dive in.
And it is good! Right down the middle!
So let's get into it, guys. There's a lot of people out there who think that college football is just ruined in its current capacity, with the NIL, the transfer portal, just players up and leaving for any rhyme or reason. A lot of people think college football is ruined. And I would agree to an extent in that I believe there needs to be some guardrails put up and whatnot. The transfer portal, the dates they open needs to be looked at and adjusted. Absolutely. Totally agree. We should maybe consider moving everything before the end of the new year. And then the transfer portal opens in January. And that would obviously alleviate a lot of these transfer woes that we're seeing where coaches are having to recalibrate their entire rosters. I mean, look at Iowa State. Last I saw, they had 16 total active players on their roster, completely gutted. Part of me, as a Washington State fan, doesn't mind because it's Coach Rogers and he up and left us. But no, seriously, I wish him well. He got us a solid season, and in any case, going off track here, but the transfer portal needs to be reworked. Some of the NIL stuff, I think there needs to be some guardrails there. But all that being said, I think the playoffs have been fantastic this season. The play on the field has been fun to watch. The players are pouring their guts into these performances. They genuinely care about what's happening on the field. They care, and they're going all out to try and bring the wins home for for their programs. And really, they're playing for their lives. In a sense, they're playing for their contractual lives because it's kind of a competition. It's a semi-pro situation where they are fighting for a spot on the team, and they're fighting for money as well. So it takes away some of the I would say tradition and the splendor, the wholesomeness maybe of what college football was. But at the end of the day, I think we were kind of kidding ourselves as at college football is bringing in $15 billion a year. This was back in 2013 when I wrote a senior thesis on why college football players should be paid. And that also included college basketball players, but I digress. I think the games have been fantastic. I think it has been fun to watch. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it as well. So without further ado, let's dive into the college football playoffs. And I'm focusing mainly on the semifinals just because that was the most recent event. And I want to start with Indiana and Alabama. Oh my gosh.
3rd and 1, looking to throw. Launching to the end zone, surrounds out there, touchdown Hoosiers! Pouring it on! Perfect 50-50.
That's Hollis.
That's pretty good. Wow. Bursting free. Hoosiers punctuate an incredible performance. And we still got 14 minutes to go.
Just a
I never in a million years did I see that coming. I thought Indiana could win, absolutely, and I was probably leaning that direction. They just looked solid all year. They beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Their defense looked legit. Offensively, Mendoza, the Heisman winner. What more can you say? The team is just a cohesive unit. All of the parts working together and playing well, and they're playing for each other. And Kurt Signetti, fantastic coach, easily one of the best coaches in the country, if not the best, just with what he's done to a program that historically has not been a football school. He's done that wherever he's been, by the way, just taking programs and elevating them into what they are now. Nick Saban was even commenting that recently, that he's just a guy who will go places and elevate them. So, uh, I did not see that coming. I thought Alabama would come in and at least put up a fight, and it would be a competitive and compelling Rose Bowl. It was compelling, just for different reasons. Hats off to you, Indiana. I mean, those guys came out and balled. A final score of 38-3. And I mean, it was 17 zip and at halftime, and the Hoosiers never looked back. I expected Alabama to at least be able to move the ball as well. They held Alabama to just 193 total yards, only 93 in the first half. That's how dominant their defense was. This Indiana team genuinely reminded me of a Nick Saban coach team. Incredibly disciplined, not making a lot of mistakes, hardly any. Offensively, they were great. They let Mendoza get sacked a couple of times early on, and I thought, oh, Alabama really came to play. And the wheels just pretty much fell off from there. And then, heart goes out to Ty Simpson, who gets hurt, in the midst of that game. And it was just over, it was already over by that point, but it really fell apart from there. 38-3, the final. Indiana's, Fernando Mendoza, he was sharp after the long layoff. He only needed to throw it 16 times, 14 of 16 for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they finished with 407 yards and 0 turnovers. They doubled Alabama's first down count, 22-11. Alabama's worst bowl defeat ever in history. And immediately, of course, everybody on social media has to jump on Kalen DeBoer and basically say, hey, he should be fired. This is a joke. Not a fan of Kalen DeBoer. My heart goes out to Kalen because the Bama fan base, in my short experience of living in Alabama, is brutal. It's brutal. Every week, you're on a job review basis. I think people are quick to forget that Nick Saban lost, I believe it was 5 or 6 games in his first 2 years as the head coach of Alabama. People forget that. But then because Saban built this cathedral of excellence at the University of Alabama, people just automatically expect the person that's coming in to replace him to automatically replicate everything. And their argument is, well, we gave them the keys to a Corvette. Yes, in a sense, I agree. But part of the reason Nick Saban left college football is because of the changing landscape of college football. We now have the NIL. We now have the transfer portal. Part of the reason Nick Saban left was because players were coming to him, challenging him for more money, and he just didn't want to deal with it. It made him retire, for crying out loud. And he lost his last bowl game against Michigan, by the way, in 2023. So heading into the offseason with a loss. It's not to say that that diminishes Nick Saban's career at all. He's easily the best coach that's ever done it in college football. But to think that the next person should just be able to come in and pick right up where Saban left off in an ever-changing landscape of college football where things are vastly different than what Saban was dealing with back in the day, in the heyday where Bama was every other year you're thinking of a national championship. It's totally unrealistic. Kalen DeBoer, in his second year, gets them to the playoffs. They were better than his first year there, where they go 9-3. They looked inconsistent offensively. A lot of people don't like Ryan Grubb. I think Ryan Grubb's an excellent play caller. He fits right in line with what Kalen DeBoer wants to do. I think Bama needs to work on their run game and get a more physical and better offensive line to be able to open up the gaps to encourage the run game and allow a more balanced attack, absolutely agree. But Kalen DeBoer has proven he can do that at the University of Washington. When they went to the national championship, they had a bruiser at running back who consistently put up over 100 yards a game. Kalen DeBoer wants to get there. I think if you give him time at a place like Alabama with all the resources Alabama offers, they'll get there. Just relax a second. My goodness. Okay, rant over. So that was the Rose Bowl. Hats off to Indiana. Really happy for Indiana. Just Kurt Cignetti, masterful job. Okay, Ole Miss and Georgia. Easily the best game that I've seen in the playoffs thus far. Ole Miss and Georgia goes back and forth. Final, of course, is 39-34. Ole Miss wins. There's drama in the end. The officials, they made the right calls technically, like the onside kick when it was recovered. Technically, yeah, that was the correct call, and ball goes to Georgia. Pete Golding obviously not happy about that, but just the delays and how long it was taking. Part of me was thinking, oh my gosh, Georgia's actually going to win this. I was fully expecting something crazy to happen there, but it didn't. Ole Miss hangs on. Chambliss plays, Trinidad Chambliss plays probably one of the best games I've ever seen in college football playoff history, maybe college football bowl season history. He just looked like a magician out there. Well, I don't know what else to say. He was running around for his life from Georgia defenders. He made a little forward flip pass. He was on the run again, running to his right, throws the ball over the top of the defense and connects with the receiver on a dot. Beautiful accuracy. And he was just in command of the offense. And I really hope he comes back for his 6th year and gets approved by the NCAA. He's already said that he would go to Ole Miss for that 6th year, putting to bed rumors that he would follow Lane Kiffin to LSU. Lane Kiffin was supposedly in greatest to ever do it at Oxford, Mississippi, and you turn their football program into a contender. That's a pretty cool thing. But instead, he goes to LSU. I, again, totally understand why he did it. Great job. And he's probably going to have a ton of success at LSU too. He can probably win some titles. I fully expect him to eventually win a title with LSU. But that's got to hurt if Ole Miss is able to finish the job here. In any case, they take down Georgia. Just an otherworldly performance from Chambliss again. 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, second half comeback. He completed 13 straight passes at one point, spread the ball to a deep receiving core with Trey Wallace, who had 9 catches for 156 yards and a touchdown. And then, they seal the win with a 47-yard field goal in the final seconds after their defense made that critical 4th down sack to set up the go-ahead score. So this, again, Ole Miss's first ever college football playoff semifinal appearance. And who are they going to play? Miami. This game, Miami and Ohio State, was fantastic. It was just cool to see the two brands come together. Last time they met, obviously, was back in the early 2000s when Ohio State knocked Miami off in the national championship game. Questionable pass interference call for that one. Miami fans probably remember it quite well. But in any case, it was cool to see these brands doing battle again. And the game was fantastic. Miami's front 7, easily the best. Arguably maybe Oregon challenges that, but Miami looked insane. They have the best front 4, no doubt. They just bullied Ohio State's offensive line. They were getting to Julian Sayin on a regular basis. He was uncomfortable the whole time. Even when they didn't get to him, he looked rattled. Like his feet were not set in a lot of his throws. He was throwing before he wanted to. He was not set in his dropbacks. All in all, Miami did a fantastic job of pressuring Julian Sayin. And the game really changed when they forced a interception, a 72-yard pick 6 by Keontae Scott that put Miami up 14-zip early.
After the loss of 6, another pass play that's intercepted. Taking it back is Keontae Scott. He'll go all the way. Touchdown, Miami. A 70-yard pick
offensively, Miami had an 8-minute touchdown drive as well on the first drive, or the first half, excuse me, with Mark Fletcher was easily the star of that drive, by the way. He had 27 yards on the drive and then capped it off with a 9-yard touchdown. Carson Beck, I've been critical of Carson Beck last year. I talked about his interception problems. I talked about how this was back when Garrett was still on the show. By the way, shout out to Garrett. He and I were talking about these college football playoffs regularly. And just a second, get some water here. By the way, one of my Christmas gifts, shout out to my brother-in-law, Jonathan. Clutch with that one. Cool mug. Would recommend. In any case, he really ended up staking Miami to a 2-score lead that the defense would never relinquish. When you know you have an elite defense at your back like Miami does, you just need to not make mistakes and not put them in bad positions. We saw what Miami's defense did against Texas A&M when they, held A&M to that low-scoring game. I was of the opinion that, well, maybe A&M just had a bad day. But then I see what they do here against Ohio State, holding them to 14, and I think, okay, this Miami defense is actually really elite. And, we'd seen flashes of that throughout the regular season as well against Notre Dame and through their gauntlet through the ACC. They had moments where it was just, okay, that's a really special unit. And Carson Beck was the one to kind of drag them down. I mean, he blew the game against SMU through a pick and cost them the game. So I didn't have a huge expectations for Miami coming into the playoffs. I thought they could maybe beat A&M, but then I assumed that was it. And here they are in the college football semifinals. So shout out to Miami, great defense, and Carson Beck leading the way on offense, managing the game. They got great running backs, solid offensive line that's opening up those holes for the running backs to get through. I don't know. Miami's looking excited. Looking forward to that Ole Miss matchup. Oregon, they shut down Texas Tech by a score of 23-zip. Kind of a boring game. To me, one of the more boring games this college football playoff. But it's also really fun to watch good defense, and that's exactly what Oregon had. Again, 23-zip, very one-sided. Texas Tech's quarterback, he was overwhelmed. Baron Morton, constant pressure. They registered 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a strip sack fumble right in the red zone, and they were able to convert that into a touchdown.
Here on 3rd and 11, he only has 7 completions for 40 yards in this Orange Bowl. Oh, the ball is out! The ball is out! Uiagalelei has it! Uiagalelei, and then he fumbles and returns to the 5-yard line, recovering it. Mateo Uiagalelei.
Hanging low off the ground. He's just going to come off the edge and rip away at this football, and somehow is able to just pluck it out of the air. That reminds me of David Pollock back in the day against South Carolina in the end zone. No idea how he was able to hold on to this, but what a game-changing play. And now the 3rd takeaway for Oregon. We talked about in this game when they've gotten taken.
And Texas Tech really just never found their rhythm. They had a couple of drives where they were able to put some things together, a couple first downs, but they could never find their rhythm offensively, and that's all credit to Oregon's defense. Oregon's offense was not pretty, but they played ball control and capitalized on short fields. Dante Moore, he was efficient, 26 of 33 for 234 yards. Jordan Davidson punched it in for 2 short touchdown runs. They dominated the time of possession. They held the ball for over 12 minutes in the first quarter alone. The first quarter alone, mind you, over 12 minutes. 23-zip, and they're off to the Peach Bowl, and they play Indiana, a rematch of a game that we saw earlier this season. And man, I'm really excited for this one. So let's go ahead and just shift to the semifinals. Oregon and Indiana, they play on the 9th. That is Friday night. Indiana's formula has been balance and defense. The Hoosiers 13-0. They have a remarkably well-rounded team. Offensively, they average 220 rush yards a game. That's 11th nationally. They have a 1-2 punch with Roman Hemby and Kalen Black, both transfers, who have combined for nearly 2,000 yards throughout the season. A strong run game complements Mendoza's efficient passing. In the rout of Alabama, I already touched on, they amassed 407 yards with no turnovers. But Mendoza also showed his playmaking ability while under pressure. He scrambled and extended plays to find receivers. Defensively, Indiana has looked obviously championship caliber as they just swarmed Alabama. 20 quarterback pressures, 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits in the quarterfinal, and they earlier held Ohio State, to, obviously in the Big Ten championship game, to 10 points. And they sacked Julian Sayin 5 times, allowing just 58 rush yards. So the Hoosiers' front seven is underrated and strong, and they've consistently controlled the line of scrimmage in big games, which is what we saw against Oregon earlier. But Oregon, obviously, they have a lot of momentum, a strong defense in their own right, and a steady offense. They're coming off of that dominating performance I just touched on. They had 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, strip sack that set up that touchdown. They only allowed 137 passing yards and 9 first downs in that game. They showed a level of physicality and discipline that bodes well against Indiana. They're going to need to bring that, and they both showed that physicality in their first meeting at Autzen Stadium. So I fully expect them to bring that same level of intensity in this one as well. They rank 15th nationally in rushing, 206 yards a game, so Indiana's a little bit higher. They feature the 3-headed backfield of Noah Whittington, Jordan Davidson, and De'Aaron Hall Jr. They each have over 570 yards and at least 5 touchdowns this season. Dante Moore, I mean, he's been fantastic. Easily one of the best quarterbacks in recent memory from Oregon, and they've had some good ones. Now the Oregon offense hasn't been as explosive as some, but they haven't made mistakes, and they finish off good field position that the defense has consistently set them up for. So Oregon is more of about control with their strong defense and then putting up good points through their offense. It's going to be an interesting game for this one. So to me, this matchup is all going to come down to the trenches. I mean, we think of the October meeting where both of these teams met at Autzen Stadium. Indiana won the battle of the trenches, frankly. I mean, they pressured Dante Moore 24 times. They sacked him 6 times, forcing 2 interceptions. Indiana showed it can collapse the pocket, and rattle more. Oregon's offensive line is going to have to do a much better job if they want to stay in this ball game. And conversely, Oregon's defense, who just had a great showing against Texas Tech, has to show up and stifle the Indiana rushing attack and force Mendoza to be the gunslinger, which he can obviously do. But if they're able to stifle the run, if they're able to put pressure on one facet of this offense's game and then key in on one of those rushing or passing attacks, then that's going to help them keep Indiana off balance, because Indiana would love to have a balanced attack where they lean on the run game, then they sprinkle in the pass. It just helps Mendoza kind of stay on top of the 8 ball and keep moving the chains methodically down the field. Indiana has been great at controlling the tempo and how they want to play the game. So I'm very curious to see how this pans out. Just the way that these two teams have been playing, I'd probably lean towards Indiana a little bit, but I don't know. It's tough to, Kurt Signetti even said this, it's tough to beat a good team twice in 1 year. So I would like to think that Dan Lanning and his crew have something cooked up for the Hoosiers here, and they get a bounce back and they go to the national championship. I think Dan Lanning's been slowly but surely improving Oregon to this point. And I think Dante Moore, I mean, he's going to be able to bounce back. The offensive line, I think, is able to bounce back in this one. And they get the job done in what I think will be an excellent game. It's going to be very close. Would not be shocked if Indiana won by any stretch. And I'd be happy for Indiana if they won, but I think Oregon comes out on top in this one. I'm going to take the Ducks. So how about the other one? Ole Miss and Miami. Ole Miss, obviously, we know the storyline. Lane Kiffin leaves in the middle of the season, and frankly, I didn't like the way Lane Kiffin played this offseason, or this regular season, and this coaching decision. I think if he had been upfront with Ole Miss of his intentions, or just made it clear what he was thinking and didn't play coy the whole time. Maybe this drama isn't even happening, and maybe Ole Miss genuinely wishes him well. Maybe Ole Miss lets him finish the season as head coach and take them to the national championship game. Maybe things just he comes out smelling, a little more rosy, but that's not the case. That's not how he decided to do it. And again, I don't fault him for the decision. I don't think Ole Miss fans would disagree, but I don't think a lot of people, I think they understand, but the way he kind of played at it and took a humorous approach in his mind really left a bad taste in Ole Miss's mouth. And I don't blame him, frankly. If I'm an Ole Miss fan, I would be pretty ticked too. It was like, wait a minute. This has been a mutually beneficial relationship here. We have given you everything you've asked for. We've made it clear that we are going to offer you all the resources you need in order to put a winning football team out there. You've won over 50 games here, and we thank you for it. But we've been a part of that too. We've helped, build this out to what it is, both sides. And it's not all just Lane Kiffin. Now, Lane Kiffin's a genius offensive mind, and Ole Miss probably doesn't get to that point without him. Definitely a large part of the credit's on his shoulders, but come on now. Have some respect for the school that believed in you, bought into you, and gave you a shot after after the way he left Tennessee, after the way he was fired at the airport by USC. He came full circle. His family was all together in Oxford, Mississippi. It was just an ugly ending. So I understand Ole Miss's feelings on this matter. But talk about that storyline of the team rallying together despite that drama in the middle of the season. They go to work, they beat Tulane, they beat the Bulldogs in an instant classic, and now here they are against Miami. So obviously Chambliss is going to need to have a great day. The Ole Miss offensive line, to me, that's the question. How are they going to do against Miami's pass rush? I think, I have some concerns, but Chambliss has shown that if anybody can run away from the Miami defense, it's probably him. He's very mobile. He's able to be accurate throwing the ball down the field despite pressure. He is poised under that pressure. He didn't make any mistakes against Georgia, who I think has an excellent defense in their own right. I think that Chambliss is up to the challenge. But this Miami front four, I mean, they are we saw what they did to Ohio State. We saw how they dominated that offensive line. If your offensive line are a bunch of turnstiles, I don't care how good you are at running for your life, Chambliss, it can only take you so far unless you just go straight Russell Wilson like he did back in his Seattle days when Seattle didn't have an offensive line and he was able to figure it out. And, maybe Chambliss is able to do that and put up another 350 plus yard performance. I don't know. But Miami's defense has looked excellent. And their offense, I think, is going to be able to do just enough to move the ball up and down the field. And, and say what you will about Carson Beck, he has kind of transitioned to more of a game manager. He has the ability to make some really precise, beautiful throws. He has that skill. But my main thing is I praise his poise and I praise his ability to not make mistakes during these playoffs. He's been pretty dang clean on that end, and he just methodically leads the team down the field. They've got a great run game. He doesn't have to do it all, and he doesn't make mistakes. And when you do that and you've got a great defense like they do, I think that bodes well for Miami. What Miami doesn't want to have happen is for this game to get into a track meet where Ole Miss scores. Miami has to march down the field and match it. Ole Miss scores, back and forth, back and forth. So if their defense is not able to contain Chambliss and that great receiving core, then Miami's in trouble. They cannot let Chambliss get outside the pocket. They have to keep him contained with those pass rushers. I think they're talented enough to do it, but that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I worry about Ole Miss's defense a little bit. Can they stop Miami from running the ball down their throat? They were able to make some clutch plays, just enough clutch plays to stop Georgia. And Georgia's got a pretty good rushing attack in their own right. So I think they could do it, but I don't know, guys. At this point in time of recording, Ooh, this is a tough one. I may just have to ride the hot hand of Trinidad Chambliss. No disrespect to Miami, but I think I like the Ole Miss Rebels in this one just because of Chambliss and his ability to make things happen. I wouldn't be shocked if Miami wins. I feel like both of these games could go either way, and I would sit there and believe it. Like, yeah, yeah, I could see that. I see the argument there. That's where I'm at. No disrespect to Miami. Fantastic team. It's fantastic defense, fantastic run game. But I just think Ole Miss has a higher ceiling of scoring. And at the end of the day, you got to put up more points. Brilliant. Brilliant analysis there from Garrison. But I'm going to take Ole Miss there, which brings us to the championship game. And I will not reveal that just yet. I want to see how these games play out, and then we'll break it down from there. But that's who I think is going to win. What do you guys think? Go ahead and comment down below who you think is going to win these semifinal games. If you disagree with any of my takes, tell me why. And if you would consider like and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be bringing some content back, folks, and I look forward to reacting to the college football playoff championship with you guys. So without further ado, this has been Saturdays Rewritten. We'll see you next time.